There are some things you bury so deep inside yourself that for years you actually believe they're gone. You tell yourself you moved on. You tell yourself it didn't matter. You remind yourself that you were just a kid, and kids get over things. But here's what nobody tells you about first love. It doesn't disappear. It just goes quiet, and it waits. This is the story of the girl I never told, the best friend I never kept, and the truth I understood 15 years too late. Stay with me, because by the end of this, I think you'll understand something about yourself, too. Before we go further, if you've ever swallowed a feeling and called it strength, hit that like button. Subscribe, because we tell the stories nobody else will. Now, let's go back. It was the first week of sophomore year. The cafeteria smelled like overcooked pasta and floor cleaner, and I was sitting in the corner like I always did, headphones in, tray pushed to the side. That's when I heard her laugh. Not a polite laugh, a real one, the kind that escapes before you can stop it, the kind that makes your chest feel like something cracked open. I looked up. She was 3 tables away, sitting with a group I didn't know yet. She had this habit of covering her mouth when she laughed, like she was embarrassed by how much joy she felt. I thought that was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I didn't know her name yet. I didn't know anything about her, but I remember thinking, I want to be the reason she laughs like that someday. Her name was Ella, and that's where everything began, and where everything eventually ended. The weeks that followed were a slow, quiet obsession. I started arriving at school early just to maybe see her in the hallway. I memorized her schedule without meaning to. I studied the books she carried, hoping to find a conversation starter I'd never actually use. But here's the thing about being the shy kid. You watch everything from a distance. You collect moments like photographs, and you never show anyone the collection. My best friend's name was Ray. We'd known each other since the 6th grade, the kind of friendship that builds itself out of bad jokes, late-night gaming sessions, and sharing half a lunch because neither of us ever had enough. Ray was everything I wasn't, loud where I was quiet, magnetic where I was invisible. He walked into a room and people just noticed. I never resented him for it. How could I? He was my best friend. But looking back, I think I already knew, even before the moment it happened. There was something about the way Ray talked, always the center of everything, always the one people gravitated toward. And Ella was someone who deserved that kind of warmth. I should have seen it coming. All the signs were there. But when you love someone and you love your best friend, you choose to be blind. It was a Tuesday in October when Ella and Ray ended up in the same group project for history class. I remember because I wasn't in that class. I remember because Ray mentioned it casually that day at lunch. "She's cool," he said. Just like that. "She's cool." 2 words. I smiled and nodded. And somewhere underneath that smile, something small and terrified curled up tighter.
There was a moment, one single moment, when I could have changed everything. It was a Friday, about 3 weeks after that Tuesday. Ella and I had a mutual friend who dragged us both to the same after-school hangout at the park near school. For the first time, it was just us. Well, us and about 4 other people who quickly scattered. We sat on the same bench. She asked me what music I was listening to. I showed her my phone. Her eyes went wide. Turns out we liked the same obscure band, an old group most people our age had never heard of. She looked at me differently after that. Not romantically, not yet, but like I was a person, like I was real. Like maybe she'd been looking past me all this time and only just now saw me standing there. I had a whole speech prepared in my head. I'd written it on a piece of paper the night before. I had it folded in my jacket pocket. All I had to do was say it. I didn't say it. Instead, we talked about the band, about music, about nothing and everything. And when her phone buzzed and she stood up to leave, she said, "We should talk more, you know." I nodded. "Yeah, we should." She walked away. I sat there for 20 minutes. That folded piece of paper burned a hole in my pocket the whole time. I threw it in a trash can on the way home. I convinced myself there'd be another moment. There always is, right? There's always another chance. If you've ever swallowed the words you needed to say, share this story with someone who gets it. Now, back to what happened next. It was Ray who told me. Not because he knew about my feelings, he didn't. I'd never said a word, not to anyone. That was my first mistake. Keeping it all inside made it mine, but it also made it invisible, and invisible things don't get protected. It was a Saturday night. He texted me, "Bro, I have to tell you something." I remember the exact feeling in my stomach, a familiar dread, the kind your body knows before your brain does. He called me instead of texting. He was nervous, I could hear it. Ray was never nervous. He talked for about 30 seconds before I understood what he was saying. He liked Ella. He'd liked her for weeks. He'd been talking to her every day, and she liked him back. They'd made it official that afternoon. He wanted me to be the first to know because he was his best friend. I said, "That's amazing, man. I'm happy for you." And I meant it. I wanted to mean it, but something inside me just went very still. We talked for another 20 minutes. He was lit up, all energy and disbelief and joy. I laughed at the right moments. I asked the right questions. When we hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there thinking about a folded piece of paper in a trash can, thinking about a girl who said we should talk more, thinking about all the moments I watched from a distance and called it patience. Patience. What a word for cowardice.
Here's what nobody prepares you for: watching the two people you care about most fall in love with each other. Because the cruelest part wasn't jealousy, it was love. I loved them both, and so I played the role. The supportive best friend, the one who laughed at their inside jokes, the one who gave relationship advice when Ray didn't know what to say, the one who told Ella her laugh was contagious when she asked if she was too much. She wasn't too much. She was exactly enough. But I said it in the voice of a friend, not the voice of someone who meant it differently. Months passed. They were happy, genuinely, radiantly happy. And me? I got very good at being alone in a crowd. But here's the thing about playing a role for too long. You start to forget which version of yourself is real. By junior year, I had mostly convinced myself I was over it. Mostly. There were still moments, a song she'd play on her phone that we'd both loved, a look she'd give me when Ray said something ridiculous that hit like a splinter you forgot was there. But I was fine. I was always fine. Until the day everything cracked open. It was December of senior year. Ray and Ella had broken up 2 weeks before, something about distance and college plans and growing up. Ray was handling it badly, and I'd been splitting my time between checking on him and quietly, guiltily, processing my own confused feelings. I ran into Ella at the bus stop after school. It was pouring. She'd missed the earlier bus. She'd been crying. You could tell, even in the rain. We stood under that tiny shelter for 40 minutes waiting for the next one. And we talked. Really talked. The way we never had. About Ray, yes, but also about everything else. About the future. About feeling like you've been living a version of yourself you didn't choose. At some point, she turned to me and said, "You know what's funny? When I first noticed you in sophomore year, I actually wanted to get to know you first, before everything got complicated." I stopped breathing. Before everything got complicated? What did that mean? What had she seen? What had I missed?
I opened my mouth. The words were right there, finally, 2 years later, standing in the rain with nowhere to be and nothing to lose. And then her phone rang. It was Ray. She looked at the screen, then at me, and something passed over her face. Guilt or maybe grief. "I should take this," she said. "Yeah, of course," I said. She stepped out into the rain to talk to him. I watched from under the shelter. The bus came early, 3 minutes early, the only bus that had ever been early in the history of that route, and she waved at me to go without her. I got on the bus. I watched her get smaller in the window, still on the phone, still in the rain. I graduated, moved to a different city for college. Ray and I stayed in touch for a while, then drifted the way people do when they stop being in the same room. Ella and I barely spoke after that night at the bus stop. One of those silences that isn't anyone's fault. It's just what happens when two people who never quite began quietly end. It was Ray who told me, years later, at a wedding we both happened to attend. We were catching up the way old friends do, skating over the surface, laughing at the distance time puts between people. He mentioned Ella, casually, said she'd moved abroad, said she was doing well, said, and here he paused, looked at his drink. "She asked about you, back then, more than once." I looked at him. "What do you mean?" He shrugged. "I mean, she liked you first, before me, sophomore year. She told me once after we broke up, said she'd been too nervous to say anything, and then it just never happened." She liked me first. She had been too nervous, just like me. We were the same, sitting on opposite sides of the same silence, both waiting for the other one to speak. I didn't say anything to Ray. What was there to say? She was abroad. I was here. We were adults now, with whole lives built on top of the choices we didn't make at 16. Ray moved on to another conversation. The wedding band played something slow and romantic, and I sat there with a drink I didn't taste, thinking about a park bench in October, a trash can by a sidewalk, and a bus stop in the rain. Thinking about all the moments I had been standing right at the edge of saying something true and choosing silence instead.
They say the saddest stories aren't the ones that end in tragedy. They're the ones that end in nothing, in two people who never got to find out what they could have been. I think about that park bench sometimes. I think about the note in my jacket pocket that I never gave her. I think about how we loved the same band, laughed at the same things, and spent 2 years standing in the same hallways, both too scared to cross them. And I think about how easy it would have been. One sentence, one moment of courage, one time choosing honesty over fear. But here's what I know now that I didn't know then. The right moment doesn't wait for you. It arrives, it stands there for a breath or two, and then it moves on. And life keeps going, and the years pile up, and the people you almost loved become stories you tell at weddings, to old friends, over drinks you don't taste. She liked me first. I liked her first, and somehow that was the most heartbreaking thing of all. Not that one of us didn't feel it, but that both of us did, quietly, secretly, at the same time, and we carried it alone our whole lives, never knowing the other person was carrying it too. If this story hit you somewhere deep, if you have your own version of that park bench, that unsent note, that silence you still carry, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Like this video if you believe in saying what you feel before the bus comes early. Subscribe so you never miss a story like this one, and share it with the person who needs to hear it before it's too late. I'll see you in the next one.